Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Elizabeth Cook. President Trump focused on deal-making with a key ally in the Middle East. The investment he just secured, while voices grow louder on Capitol Hill about that jet Qatar offered him as a gift. And we are expected to hear from the family of the last living American hostage in Gaza, the emotional reunion after being freed from 19 months of captivity by Hamas. And day 2 in the case against disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The prosecution's star witness testifies about the physical and psychological abuse she endured. And the ultra-powerful telescope Webb giving us new insights about the largest planet in our solar system. Plus, what a trio of scientists are saying about the future of the universe. Stick around for that. But right now in Saudi Arabia, President Trump marking his first international trip of his second term. So far, the president secured a $600 billion investment commitment in Saudi Arabia. We should say it's the official international trip of his term. Here's some of what that will look like. Nearly $142 billion for defense in Saudi Arabia from U.S. contractors, a $20 billion investment for AI data centers in the U.S., a $5.8 billion investment in healthcare in the U.S., and a $4.8 billion investment for a Boeing 737-8 passenger jet. Now, just moments ago, the president gave remarks at an investment forum in the region where he touched on a number of topics. Let's listen into that.
The Biden administration, the worst administration in the history of our country, by the way, spurned our most trusted and longstanding Gulf partners, and I can say partners worldwide. One of our great partners, no matter who we look to, and we have great partners in the world, but we have none stronger and nobody like the gentleman that's right before me. He's your greatest representative. And if I didn't like him, I'd get out of here so fast. You know that, don't you? He knows me well. I do. I like him a lot. I like him too much. That's why we give so much, you know? Too much. I like you too much. Great guy. They lifted sanctions on Iran in exchange for getting nothing, and sent the regime tens of billions of dollars to fund terror and death all over the world. And they laughed at him. They laughed at our leader. And they're still laughing at our leader. They thought him a fool.
CBS News White House correspondent Aaron Navarro is keeping track of the president's movements overseas. Aaron, the president made a major announcement to lift sanctions on Syria. How significant is that?
Yeah, these are sanctions that have been in place since the 2011 Syrian civil war, and it drew a really big reaction from that room in Saudi Arabia. And President Trump quipped, quote, "Oh, what I do for the crown prince." He wished the country good luck. And this is an economic game changer for the country, who had just left the regime of Bashar al-Assad. They have a new foreign minister. And President Trump, by lifting these sanctions, is essentially giving them a new slate to build themselves up economically. And that was a big theme within his speech, mentioning how Saudi Arabia and other countries have been self-developing themselves in terms of the economy. This announcement also comes as White House officials have told CBS News that President Trump is expected to give a quick hello to the new Syrian foreign minister tomorrow in Saudi Arabia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also expected to meet with the new foreign minister during his trip to Turkey on Thursday.
And Aaron, you know, he covered a wide range of topics during this address today. What else stood out to you?
Yeah, largely the talk about economic self-development stuck out to me when he said, quote, "Our people would go to Turkey on Thursday," and that is in reference to the talks, direct talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials. We have been told that in addition to Secretary of State Rubio, special advisors and envoys Keith Kellogg, Steve Witkoff are expected to be there for those talks. Russian media confirmed earlier today that they would be direct talks and that Russian officials officials would be there. And President Trump, again, as he has said before, called on Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. That was the agreement he reached in his first term for peace agreements between Israel and several Arab states, such as the UAE, Morocco. But Saudi's leaders have made clear that they would not do that until there's a clear path for Palestinian statehood and an end to the war in Gaza.
A lot of talk also about this $600 billion investment. What does this agreement look like for the U.S.?
Yeah, a big part of it is that defense sales agreement of $142 billion. The White House says that that'll involve over a dozen U.S. defense firms. So adding on to the military significance, the economic significance of how President Trump has called for other foreign markets to, quote, open up to U.S. businesses. This provides Saudi Arabia with warfighting equipment, includes training and support to build capacity of their armed forces, enhancements of their service academies, military medical services. All in all, building not just an economic relationship with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region, but as well as a military and political one that the U.S. is strengthening their position there through this agreement.
All right, CBS News White House correspondent Aaron Navarro, thank you so much. All right, let's take you to New York now, where a key witness just testified in the sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear. Let's bring in CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman. She's been following this case for us outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Katrina, can you go over just what happened in court today?
So we are currently hearing from Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. She walked into the courtroom today in a very tight brown dress that shows off her very late stage pregnancy. This is actually something that the defense was hoping not to have happen. They felt that the jury seeing her pregnant might make her seem more sympathetic to them. It looks as though they lost that battle in front of the judge. But Cassie has been testifying about her relationship with Sean Combs, how it developed from when she was very young. They met when she was 19, I believe it was. He first kissed her around her 21st birthday. And then we're starting to learn about how they got closer, how he started to exert what appears to be the government trying to show a pattern of control over her life. She was signed to a record deal with his company, but they only put out one of the 10 records that she was supposed to have. So he was in control of a lot of her finances. He got her apartments. She has started to testify about the abusiveness in their relationship and the sexual proclivities that he introduced her to, like voyeurism and something that he called freak-offs, where she would get male escorts or he would get male escorts, and they would engage in sex acts for anything from hours to days. And she also talks about how their relationship became violent and she didn't know which side of Combs she would get in the morning. At one point saying that she didn't know if she made the wrong face, if he would hit her in the face. You can also see the government starting to try to lay out this racketeering scheme that they're accusing him of, where they say that he was running his company as a criminal enterprise. She says that his security guards and trusted assistants took part in keeping an eye on her, tracking her down if Combs couldn't reach her. We're on pause for lunch now, but she's taking the stand again any moment to continue their story, and we expect it to go on for the next few days.
And Katrina, before you go, I just want to make sure we cover what are Diddy's defense lawyers saying about all of this? They're not denying that he had some unusual proclivities, right?
You are absolutely right. In opening statements yesterday, they made it clear that they are owning up to a lot of Sean Combs' faults. They say that he's guilty of domestic violence, that he has committed assaults, that he has a really bad temper, but they're saying these are not the things that he's charged with. You know, at the same time, they do want to really make him seem more empathetic to the jury. It was even just interesting watching Sean Combs in court today. I was looking at him during moments that might, strike a chord with the jury, and sometimes I could see him, looking at Cassie and then scanning them to get their reactions. But really, their defense is, one, that he has a lot of these issues, but they just do not align with the charges here.
Katrina Kaufman live outside that courthouse for us. Katrina, thank you so much. All right, let's switch gears and take a look at the big board and the markets on a day when new inflation numbers are out. The Dow currently down about 208 points. Now, this is following a big rally yesterday as the U.S. and China hit the pause button on their trade war. The consumer price index rose 0.2% in April, and it's up 2.3% over last year. Now, inflation cooled with grocery prices down, along with sharp drop in egg prices specifically. But economists are still keeping an eye on the potential increasing impact of tariffs in the months ahead. So let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, can you break down what these numbers tell us about the economy and the impact of tariffs?
So this is a good report, Liz. We have not seen an annual number, that 2.3% number that you just quoted, since February of 2021. So it has been a while. And this comes off of the last few months of inflation cooling. That still does mean that prices are rising overall, just at a slower rate. But as you mentioned, we actually got some price relief. We saw prices go down in the category that this report calls food at home. So basically think groceries. Eggs was one, fruits and vegetables another, some of the meats. It was a good report when it comes to those essentials that people need to buy on a daily basis. Shelter, though, that is where we saw some of that stickiness that has always been a very traditional source of inflation in these reports. When it comes to the impact of tariffs, you're seeing a little bit in this report. Remember, we did get some of the lower tariffs on China put on in February and March. That is trickling into some of these line items. I particularly called out vehicle parts. Where do most of your vehicle parts come from? China. That was up 2.2% versus that 0.2% monthly number you mentioned, so significantly higher. But the broader tariffs that we're worried about in terms of inflation spiking, that would be the 145% tariff on China that was recently reduced to 30%, the 10% broader tariff across the board for most nations around the world. You're likely not going to see that impact until the next few months because a lot of companies stockpiled. So headline, good inflation report. The question is what's coming.
Right. And speaking of what's coming, I mean, the Fed has kept interest rates steady, much to the frustration of the president, the very vocal frustration. Could today's numbers or good report, could that change that?
So fast or rewind maybe a year ago, 1,000%. This would be a sort of green light for the Fed because the labor market has remained healthy, but inflation has been coming down month after month. But again, there is this concern that the tariffs could cause a spike in prices pretty quickly, and the Fed does not want to preemptively cut rates and infuse sort of spending into the economy at a time when you could see inflation cause prices to tick up quite rapidly, or tariffs to cause prices to tick up quite rapidly. So they're likely going to hold.
Another headline I know you're following for us, Kelly, is United Healthcare CEO is stepping down and the company is actually suspending its 2025 forecast. How significant is this for the company after the murder of Brian Thompson?
Well, it's sort of more bad news, especially on that forecast front. The stock is really getting ravaged in the market right now. And it's mainly, though, because the company did not bake in the increase in Medicare costs, which, if you think about it, there were a lot of surgeries, a lot of procedures that weren't life-threatening, but they were need to have that were put off during COVID. You're seeing a lot of folks in that elderly bracket get hip replacements, knee replacements. So there's a backlog that's causing this increase in Medicare costs. And then on the CEO front, we do know that he's stepping down for personal reasons. It's always tough when a big public company goes through a leadership change. But from a continuity perspective, a previous CEO is stepping in to fill that role.
All right, Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. Well, the Trump administration is taking aim at Harvard again, cutting another $450 million in federal grants to the university. And that's on top of the already $2.2 billion in grants the White House has already slashed. Now, the announcement just came down from the White House Joint Task Force to combat anti-Semitism. It released a statement saying the university has failed to confront racial discrimination and anti-Semitic harassment on campus. Harvard then sued the Trump administration last month to reverse the initial funding cuts, which came after it refused to comply with a list of White House demands. The university's president previously said that Harvard would not give up its constitutional rights. And a judge has denied bond for the suspect in a mass shooting at Florida State University. 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner just made his first virtual court appearance after being released from the hospital. The FSU student is accused of killing 2 people and injuring several others on campus last month in Tallahassee. He is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. Today, a judge ordered him to have no contact with the shooting victims, their families, or any witnesses, and a public defender was appointed to him. Well, a health scare for former President Joe Biden. A small nodule was found in the 82-year-old's prostate during a routine medical exam. News of the discovery was first reported by the New York Times. Doctors say further testing will reveal whether the nodule points to cancer or is benign. Well, coming up, a 7-alarm fire in Baltimore impacts transit across the East Coast. Our reporters are on the scene with an update. You're watching CBS News 24/7. In Paris today, Kim Kardashian gave emotional testimony about being robbed at gunpoint in 2016. She talked about being bound and gagged while a group of masked men made off with her jewelry worth millions of dollars. CBS News reporter Haley Ott has more on what she said on the stand.
Kim Kardashian was in Paris for Fashion Week almost 9 years ago when she says masked men broke into her residence, tied her up, gagged her, and stole millions of dollars worth of her jewelry. Today, she took the stand to testify against 10 people facing charges who've been dubbed the grandpa robbers by the French press because they're mostly in their 60s and 70s. All but 2 of them deny any involvement. Kardashian recounted what took place the night of the heist, saying 5 of the men, dressed like police officers, forced their way into her suite and stole valuables and jewels, including the $4 million engagement ring given to Kardashian by her then husband, the rapper Kanye West, or Ye. Kardashian said she believed she would be raped and killed that night and that she begged the robbers to let her live, telling them she had babies she needed to get home to. Even though it's been almost 9 years since the robbery, Kardashian thanked the court at the start of her testimony for, she said, giving her the opportunity to share her truth. She told one of the accused, whose letter of apology was read out in court, that she forgave him. Back to you.
Haley, thank you so much. All right, let's take you to Southern California now, where a resentencing hearing just began in the past hour to decide the fate of the Mendez brothers. Eric and Lyle Mendez are currently serving life sentences without the possibility of parole for murdering their parents in 1989. Now, after months of delays, a Los Angeles judge is presiding over a resentencing hearing that's expected to last about 2 days. The brothers are asking for early release based on the claim that they committed the murders after enduring years of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. A CBS News team is in court today and will bring you the very latest updates on what unfolds during that hearing. All right, let's take you to Baltimore now, where firefighters are dousing hot spots after a 7-alarm inferno torched a warehouse and delayed Amtrak service across the East Coast. Our partners at CBS News Baltimore are on top of this story. Let's listen into their coverage from just moments ago.
Well, a massive warehouse fire in northwest Baltimore. It's finally contained, but it is still burning 17 hours after it erupted. The fire is displacing people who live nearby and disrupting road and rail traffic. WJZ and Tara Lynch staying on this story. We first broke at 7 last night. So, Tara, smoke continues to rise. Hard to believe with this rain from that building.
Denise, it's really incredible. This escalated so quickly to a 7-alarm fire last night. If you were with us last night, you saw us here on this corner. We're back here on Arunha and North Bentaloo. I do want to step aside because fire crews are still working. You can see this aerial attack is still going. It's been like this for many hours. We just heard from Fire Chief James Wallace. He says that the fire is still in the core of this building, sort of beneath that water tower, if you can imagine. And this is a very large warehouse, so it's making it very difficult for these aerial attacks to even reach where that fire is still burning. I do want to show you what it looked like last night because it was pretty remarkable. At about 9:45, those flames erupted yet again. Of course, this fire came in just before 7 o'clock. the flames kind of reemerged and it was burning with extreme heat. That's when about 30 residents here on North Bentaloo were removed from their homes and actually helped by the Red Cross and taken to nearby hotels just to stay the night because this has been a very dangerous fire. We also know BGE has shut down utilities in this area, and Amtrak service has also been impacted. A lot of moving parts here. We learned from the fire chief this morning why this fire is so difficult to fight because of the way this building is constructed.
As you look at that building, you see 3 or 4 stories above ground. One of our biggest challenges has been 2 stories below ground that we were not able to get into. This building it's brick and mortar. It also has a very large water tower on top of it. So tactically, our challenges were actually whether or not we were going to put people inside of the building. This became a predominantly exterior fire.
And if you're familiar with this area, this building used to be a bakery here. Now it's a vacant warehouse, but the fire department believes there's stuff inside. They believe there's a lot of mattresses that are stacked, which of course is a lot of fuel for this fire to continue to burn. The city is working on a demolition plan right now. There is concern of a collapse on the east wall of this building that faces the Amtrak tracks, which is why Amtrak service right now is limited to just one rail. So if you are traveling Amtrak, you need to check in with your train schedule here today. We also know Empowerment Academy, which is about 3/10 of a mile from where I stand right now, will be dismissing early at 12:30. So Denise, a lot of moving parts still here in West Baltimore. For now, reporting live on North Bentley Street, I'm Tara Lynch, WJZ.
All right, from Maryland to Minnesota right now, crews in the northeastern part of the state are trying to get a handle on 3 wildfires, 2 of them burning thousands of acres, forcing some entire communities to evacuate. High temperatures, low humidity, and gusty winds are creating a major challenge for firefighters. We know, Jess, that is a very dangerous combination. We see it too often with these wildfires. Too much heat, too much wind, not enough moisture.
Oh, yeah. I mean, relative humidity is significantly low up there right now. And one other factor to look into as well, it's the drought monitor. They are under a moderate drought right now up just in that region. So you add that into the mixture of all those other main ingredients for the red flag warnings. It's not looking good right now, but that's going to look a little different as we head into the rest of this week's forecast. I want to pull up the drought monitor, though, widespread throughout the nation, to start off with what we're seeing up north. And this is actually crazy to think about. I mean, you see critical conditions way to the south, but these dry conditions stretch up into Minnesota, all the way throughout the Dakotas too. And it's going to take a lot of rain to make that look a lot different as we head into the season. Now, there is a lot of rain actually right around the corner, pushing throughout the Dakotas throughout the next 48 hours, eventually making its way over into Minnesota and Wisconsin too as we head into the coming days. Now, with those storms, let's take a look behind me. The big concern, of course, would be lightning with any thunderstorm activity associated with it. So we take a look at our critical fire weather conditions today, zooming in just a little bit closer to northern states. We see gusts anywhere up to around 60 miles per hour today in areas like Fargo, stretched all the way over throughout most of the state of Minnesota, and relative humidity is significantly low right now too. It's looking similar to our friends down south, but our friends down south are dealing with record-breaking heat up to around 100 degrees today, all the way over into Texas and down into New Mexico and Arizona as well. We'll keep a close eye on the storms later this week as we head into our Thursday and Friday forecast, pushing over into the Great Lakes. Real fast, I want to show you this too. Our severe weather outlook turns from today to tomorrow all the way into our Thursday forecast. It's becoming a lot more widespread. So the severe storms are going to be noticeable in areas like Chicago, stretched all the way down into Memphis, Tennessee, and I'll have more on that coming up in just a bit.
All right, Jess, thanks so much. Well, coming up, we'll take you back to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are looking to slash spending by $880 million, much of that coming from Medicaid. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Let's take you to Capitol Hill now, where President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill faces a major test today. 3 key House committees will meet to iron out some of the most contentious parts, including a portion that could slash spending for Medicaid and other programs. Our Nicole Killian spoke with a 24-year-old Medicaid recipient and the CEO of Valley Health, a rural hospital system, on the impact of these potential cuts. Take a listen.
Overall, it's about 30. 30 medications?
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes. Yes.
How do you pay for all of this?
I am very fortunate that I have Medicaid. They have been paying 100% for most of my medications.
We need a solution that's workable. And throwing out a number like $880 billion, I mean, somebody's going to get hurt in that situation.
Okay, so let's talk to CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. Nicole, Republicans have said they wouldn't touch Medicaid benefits. So what's the strategy here?
Yeah, well, they still contend that in terms of saying that people who rely on this program, whether it's pregnant women, the elderly, and the like, that this really isn't going to impact them, that this is really about trying to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. So that is why, while we didn't see cuts as deep as expected, there are a number of reforms and potential reductions. For instance, the latest proposal that will be considered this afternoon by the Energy and Commerce Committee would require implementing work requirements for able-bodied individuals, for them to work 80 hours a month at least, or volunteer or go to school for that period of time. Also, you have a number of other proposals that are part of this package, whether that is, for instance, restricting funding to some states that may allow undocumented immigrants to use Medicaid. There are also other provisions in here that would tighten eligibility requirements, potentially require some beneficiaries to pay a copay depending on how much they make, if it's a certain amount above the federal poverty level. So again, this is about trying to, in the words of the chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee, strengthen Medicaid, eliminate waste and abuse. But of course, Democrats feel much differently, arguing that this is a catastrophe, one of the largest cuts to Medicaid in the history of the program. And so that's why I think you will see certainly Democrats try to introduce a number of amendments within this markup that will take place later this afternoon to try to stymie the process, but also try to change the bill if they can get the votes. But more than likely, we will see Republicans try to block that and move this package forward as expeditiously as possible so they can get it to the floor at some point for passage.
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to this so-called big, beautiful bill, Nicole. What more are we expecting from today's committee meetings?
Yeah, well, it's not just House Energy and Commerce that's meeting today. Again, they're charged with kind of dealing with the Medicaid portion of this, also rolling back some clean energy tax credits. But, you know, we will also be keeping close eyes on House Ways and Means. That committee is charged with the tax portion of this package, which, again, is a big chunk of the president's big, beautiful bill. I mean, so much of this is about trying to extend his tax cuts and to pay for those tax cuts. So basically, that portion of the bill, for instance, while extending and preserving the tax cuts, make some additional changes like expanding the standard deduction, increasing the child tax credit, and it also includes some of the president's proposals that he campaigned on, like no taxes on tips, although at this point in time it doesn't seem like there was a provision in there that would raise taxes on the wealthy. There was talk about potentially raising the tax rate for that upper bracket of high income earners. That is something the president kind of floated last week, saying he didn't really have an issue if people like him or the wealthy potentially pay more, but that ultimately didn't make it into this portion of the package. You also have the House Agriculture Committee that will also be marking up their section of the bill. They're tasked with dealing with things like SNAP benefits. Their latest proposal would shift more of that burden onto states, and so again, that is something that Democrats are very critical of doing, but again, Republicans argue it's necessary to try to make some of these savings, again, to pay for not only the president's tax cuts, but also some of his other legislative priorities that are contained in this package.
Nicole, I want to pivot to another headline coming out of Capitol Hill today. Senator Chuck Schumer announcing he is halting the confirmation of numerous political nominations. And this surrounds reports that the Qatari government is gifting President Trump a plane. Here he is on the Senate floor this morning.
News of the Qatari government gifting Donald Trump a $400 million private jet to use as Air Force One is so corrupt that even Putin would give a double take. This is not just naked corruption, it is also a grave national security threat. So in light of the deeply troubling news of a possible Qatari-funded Air Force One, and the reports that the Attorney General personally signed off on this clearly unethical deal, I am announcing a hold on all DOJ political nominees until we get more answers.
So, Nicole, how are other lawmakers responding to this? Because I know some Republicans aren't happy about this plane.
Yeah, it has taken some lawmakers back here on Capitol Hill wondering, how could the president do this? Doesn't this raise some ethical concerns and issues? So that is something that we have heard from both Democrats and Republicans alike. But that being said, as you heard the leader there say, he is willing to take the stand of potentially blocking some of the president's judicial appointments. And he is also calling on the Attorney General to testify before Congress at some point over this issue.
Nicole Killian live for us on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much, Nicole.
You bet.
3 people are dead and nearly a dozen more are injured after officials in Gaza say an Israeli airstrike struck a southern Gaza Strip hospital. The Israeli military said it was targeting Hamas militants within the hospital. Now, this comes the day after Hamas released an Israeli-American soldier held hostage there for more than 19 months. Well, the fight continues to return the mistakenly deported Maryland man Kilmar Garcia. In a new court filing, his lawyers argue that the administration is stonewalling and wasting time a full month after the U.S. Supreme Court found his removal to be illegal. So let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice correspondent Scott McFarland, who has been following the story from day one. Scott, can you break down this overnight court filing for us?
All of it is a prelude to the next hearing in this case, a potentially pivotal hearing on Thursday just outside of Washington, D.C. Both sides have exchanged another set of legal punches in what has been a months-long legal brawl. Garcia's attorneys argue that the administration is simply slow-walking everything in this case. A federal court judge in Maryland has already ordered Garcia's return to the U.S. The Supreme Court has ordered the administration to facilitate his return to the U.S. from that Salvadoran detention center. Yet, a month later, after the Supreme Court's ruling, Garcia is unmoved. He remains in El Salvador. The argument from the lawyers for Garcia is that the administration is not being forthcoming, not being urgent with the communications with El Salvador. And the administration, for its part, is telling a judge a lot of what is being asked for in this case are state secrets, sensitive diplomatic matters between the U.S. and El Salvador. The judge in this case, Judge Paul Azinas, can try to iron some of this out Thursday in the afternoon hearing.
And Scott, I want to pivot for a moment to another headline you've been following. A group of white South Africans are now in the U.S. after Trump granted them expedited refugee status. Can you give us kind of the background of this story and why Trump is expediting the South African resettlements but stopped all other refugee admissions?
This was quite a sight. I was there at Dulles International Airport in Virginia when this group of 59 arrived yesterday. And you could see the first ones into the hangar were children with their plush toys and their headphones from the long flight and their parents. The group likely to be ushered to U.S. communities elsewhere to start a new life there. These are refugees officially resettled by the Trump administration. But the critics of the administration argue this group is arriving here in expedited, urgent fashion, even as the administration closes the faucet of other resettlements and other refugees from other parts of the country, ones without quite the history of South Africa. We'll see if more groups come. The administration indicated that there could be future trips, but the administration also defends this transport, telling us yesterday that these individuals, the ones you see there on your screen, were living in harrowing conditions with the death threats hanging over them.
And Scott, I want to go back to some court cases that we've been following as well this week. Some important dates happening this week. One for the mayor of Newark and the other for a Wisconsin judge. Can you tell us about those cases and what we can expect this week?
Two very different cases, but similar in that they're high profile. The mayor of Newark, Ross Baraka, was arrested on Friday, allegedly for entering restricted space at a detention center in Newark, part of an inspection, he says, along with members of Congress. There was a hearing on the schedule for Thursday in this federal criminal case. The Department of Justice has said they don't have to have this hearing. It's what they call a petty offense, a low-level offense, likely on a slower path, one that doesn't require a hearing on Thursday, and a judge agrees. But also Thursday, there will be a hearing in the federal criminal case against Wisconsin local judge Hannah Dugan, who is accused of a federal crime of obstructing federal agents who were outside her courtroom a few weeks ago to detain a criminal defendant on an immigration matter. They accuse Dugan of rerouting that would-be deportee and, in the process, obstructing the federal government. She'll have her arraignment Thursday at federal court in Milwaukee, where she can enter a not guilty plea to the charge. She has not commented since her arrest, which was publicized in a social media perp walk photo by FBI Director Kash Patel.
All right, Scott McFarland, thank you so much. Well, coming up, incredible images of Jupiter coming in. Look at that. The auroras, those are called auroras, that were captured by the James Webb Telescope give new insight into the galaxy's largest planet. You're watching CBS News 24/7. It is our Eye on America series, CBS News following the human side of the headlines, telling your stories from your communities. Well, getting around can be a challenge for people experiencing homelessness. CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides introduces us to a Florida man spending part of his retirement helping the homeless, one bicycle at a time.
Retired music teacher Russell Durham has found a new instrument to bring joy, a bicycle.
It's been checked over.
Rusty, as he's affectionately known, hooks up people experiencing homelessness with free bikes at this Orlando, Florida outreach center every Tuesday.
What a difference it makes in their way of life and also in their mental attitude.
The day we met Rusty, he had a bike for 59-year-old Michael Hogue. Hogue told us he's been living in the streets for the past 3 years.
It's like Christmas. It really is like Christmas. I've been waiting for like a year for a bike. This is so much a blessing to me. I'm gonna ride this bike all day today.
Hogue plans to use the bike to get to work.
We see tears. We get hugs.
Rusty's Bicycle Recycle started as a nonprofit nearly 20 years ago and now partners with a number of Central Florida organizations. Kathleen Jorge is outreach director at Service and Love Together, better known as SALT.
It's making huge impacts in people's lives and helping them not be in this situation anymore.
The Orlando Police Department is also a partner, sending unclaimed bicycles from evidence to Rusty and his team.
The bikes that are donated are repaired in this garage. Rusty operates it with the help of a few volunteers.
And once a month, Rusty hosts a bicycle repair clinic, running the nonprofit without any employees and entirely on donations and grants, all to deliver some personal transportation where it's needed.
Most of the time, people are asking them to move along or ignoring them. They're shunned. Instead, to be embraced and have people care about you. Wow, what a change that can make in a person.
Changing lives, one ride at a time. Christian Benavides, CBS News, Orlando.
All right, let's take a live look now at Dallas. People in Texas bracing for a potentially dangerous heat wave there. Temperatures climbing across a large swath of the state. Let's bring in Jessica Birch on this heat in record territory already.
I mean,
wow.
San Antonio, Texas today getting up to 104 degrees. They're expected to break records today there. And that's the case widespread throughout those states, stretching all the way up into the Dakotas as well. So let's break this apart. There's been this huge area of high pressure sitting over the Midwest and stretching all the way down to the south too. As you take a look at our daytime highs today and take a look at our temperatures too, I mean, that record-breaking heat that's expected stretches anywhere from Dallas over into San Antonio. I wanted to put our temperature contour map on just to show you all that heat that stretches all the way up into places like the Dakotas and over into Minnesota too. It's a warm day for us today, widespread throughout. Millions of people are being impacted by this right around the corner. And here's what it's looking like. We're 20 degrees above average today over into Minnesota. We're close to 30 degrees above average up into the Dakotas in certain spots, and that's the case all throughout the south too. Arkansas, down into Texas, it has been a very warm start to the day, and we're not done just yet. We head into the afternoon hours today. We're expected to hit 97 degrees all the way up into Fargo, North Dakota. And you stretch over into Colorado. Colorado Springs is sitting at 84 degrees. This is above average for this time of year. We turn the page to our forecast tomorrow, but we're still seeing above average temperatures from Detroit all the way over into Raleigh. This is going to be the case for us. It feels a lot more summer-like as we head into this afternoon compared to where we should be for this time of year. But luckily, wrapping up this week, heading into this weekend, this is expected to start to cool down. Back to you.
Jess, thank you so much. All right, check this out. So cool. The James Webb Space Telescope giving us the best view yet of the glowing auroras on Jupiter. An international team of scientists analyzed these photos that the telescope caught in late 2023. These pictures show the auroras are hundreds of times brighter than the northern lights that we can see on Earth. They will help scientists understand more about how the atmosphere works on the largest planet in our solar system. I love looking at these pictures. Well, here's something. The end of the universe is coming sooner than expected. It's not in our lifetime, though, don't worry, or anytime soon, for that matter. New research from Dutch scientists says that we have about 10 to the power of 78 years. You can do that math before that actually happens. That's 1 with 78 zeros, so it's okay. But it is a major revision from a previous prediction of 10 to the power of 1,100 years. They based their findings on calculations by renowned scientist Stephen Hawking, who said the black holes that make up space are leaking radiation and will eventually dissolve from existence. Okay. Well, an Egyptian government agency says the U.S. has returned rare smuggled artifact. The ministry says that the pieces spanning centuries of Egyptian civilization were handed over following a 3-year recovery effort. There they are. The collection includes a sarcophagus lids dating back more than 5,000 years. It also includes parts of a temple, a Greco-Roman portrait, and fragments believed to be from the Queen's temple. The ministry says they were all seized in investigations starting in 2022. The pieces were held at the Egyptian consulate in New York until their return to Cairo on Sunday. No word yet on exactly how the artifacts surfaced in the U.S. in the first place. All right, we'll have much more ahead here on CBS News 24/7. We're following every step of President Trump's visit to the Gulf as he secures an investment deal and puts pressure on Iran for a new nuclear deal. We're also keeping an eye on a few major court cases happening today from coast to coast. A California judge will decide whether the Mendez brothers should get a chance at freedom, and new developments coming out of rapper Sean P. Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial in New York. Lindsay Reiser is next. Stay with us right here on CBS News 24/7.